Last year we were-
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Oh.
it's kind of like my parents got it. Ready?
Yes.
We are to get started with the special committee on environment resiliency. We're gonna start informational only since we're waiting on.
We have to still have to call the roll.
So I'll call the roll.
Yep.
So, can you please call the roll?
Chair Antoine,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Sanchez, Councilwoman Anthony is absent, Councilman Espinal is absent, and Councilor Royas is absent. We have 2 present and 3 absent. We do not have a quorum.
Okay. We will be joined by Councilman Boyes any minute now, who's stuck in traffic, but, so thanks everyone for being here. I'm Serena Boyd, chair of the committee. It's our regular March 12th meeting, calling to order at 5:37, virtual only until Justin gets here. But I'm really excited about today's meeting. And I also want to celebrate today's meeting. We have 2 big milestones to celebrate. One is, 1 year ago today, we signed our, the mayor signed our carbon neutral for all municipal buildings legislation, and here we are, which was exactly 1 year ago today. And here we are today with the Office of Sustainability to talk about energy efficiency and electrification and how they're moving along with that. So just really so grateful to this team for all their amazing work. So we're going to hear about that from this amazing team, and we're also going to hear from Alex Ellis from the Department of Planning, who has been working on our plan for how we're going to achieve Vision Zero, which was also passed last year in February. So just really excited for this progress, and this is a committee that gets things done and then gets them implemented, and this is the team that's implementing it. And so as part of the celebration, I also brought, and celebration and expression of gratitude for all of your amazing hard work. I brought treats for everybody, so I'm going to pass them this way, and while we read item number 1 to the agenda, please.
Progress on energy efficiency and decarbonization policy implementation. Presentation by Priscilla De La Cruz, Director of Sustainability.
Do you want to help? Yeah. Okay. Come on up, Priscilla,
And David Bergero, also our Energy and Resilience Initiative Center.
and also everybody's welcome.
Do you want to sit over here together?
But that works. Oh my God. It's worth meeting because you're going to see like a PowerPoint.
No, I was saying that sit both right here.
Is it okay if we sit here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, is that your house?
And pass the treat around, please celebrate.
How are you?
We appreciate the heck out of you guys.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That's really nice.
Oh.
No.
Thank you.
Are you gonna be starting with the PowerPoint? Do you want me to? bring it
Yes,
up?
so the PowerPoint, yeah, that was great.
But thank you guys really so much for getting situated. I mean, you guys have worked so hard on this. And you worked so hard to help get both, build the carbon neutral and also benchmarking path. Because also amazing tonight that the State House, they're hearing the benchmarking, benchmarking legislation, and their Director David Cruz submitted testimony in support. And I think this is a really good example of the city leading the way. So while the state is trying to figure out, hey, can we do this? What would it look like? You guys are just already doing it and just rocking it. And the number of people I've told that you're amazing to in the last like a year, but like especially the last week, being like, no, Providence is doing it. It's Priscilla, it's David, it's Kevin, it's the whole team. It's so many. So thank you from the bottom of the heart. But we'd love to hear how it's going and how it will be helpful in moving it forward.
Well, thank you for cheering us along the way, Councilwoman, and also for your leadership on all this work. And now we get to share with you how we've been working hard to implement.
Yeah, and please do eat the treats. I brought some treats you guys.
These are really.
Oh, nice.
So,
Oh, great. And then make sure, all right, you go to the right. And then, okay, perfect. So thank you again for the time. We're excited to talk to you about the work that the Department of Sustainability has been doing to really achieve cost savings for the city through energy efficiency, electrification, and decarbonization. So you have myself, Priscilla here, director. You also have David, very talented and experienced Energy Resilience Initiatives administrator. And in the audience, you also have our energy manager, Andrew Brocolo, and also our URI energy fellow, Dylan, who are part of the team in helping make this work happen. Today, you don't have with us Julia, Kevin, and Sophie. We are 6 in our department and now 7 with Dylan throughout the year, but they're also very essential for us being able to carry out this work. All right, so we'll get into what we'll cover with you today. We want to make sure that we can give you the high level view, but comprehensive enough in terms of the role that the Department of Sustainability plays in your city operations, and how we contribute through essential responsibilities, like how we manage utilities for the city, how we procure that energy for those utilities, but also, like Sue mentioned, the big milestones of us launching our building energy reporting program and the decarbonization roadmap we are developing to phase out fossil fuels from our municipal buildings, and we'll get more into that. The second thing that we want to make sure we achieve throughout this presentation is making sure we give you insight as to our approach of really being able to do this work that we see as cost-effective investments for the city. And welcome, Councilman.
Yeah, I
Good
just
to
want
see
to
you
know
tonight.
that Councilman Roy is supposed to be a fun. We just got started. You did miss that there are treats though to celebrate the hard work at the sustainability department and Alex doing all this stuff.
Just trying to cut down on calories, but if the devil on my shoulder speaks to me, I might.
They're vegan, so they're like,
Oh, that makes me
Yeah.
feel better.
You can feel better about it. Yeah. So yes, so we'll get into some of those cost-effective investments that we have been guiding for the city through energy management efficiency, electrification, and decarbonization. And then lastly, we'll get into the opportunities where the city can save more administrative time, energy, and money, and also generate revenue. So what we will talk to you about today is how we've created the framework and how we are planning to scale that up for you all. So we'll start off with utility management and getting into what we see as the basis for good energy management of our buildings and how we procure our energy and what that means. So I have to say, I am extremely proud of the work that the sustainability department, in particular, David, working with our new energy manager, Andrew, have been doing to really bring our utility management and energy operations in our buildings to the 21st century. So really thinking about what are the digital capabilities of being able to, not only do they bring the skills and the knowledge, but then being able to really execute that more efficiently because we have the right tools and the right software. So one of the things that David has shepherded through his division of energy in our department is really making sure that we have the right tools, like a cloud database, which we refer to as the Energy Intelligence Suite. So we, the city, are one of the biggest customers, or would we say the biggest customer that Rhode Island Energy has?
I believe we have the most accounts, not so much the most consumption.
So imagine like managing on an antiquated way, 1,000 utility accounts. So that's what we inherited when we took over the process coming from finance and public property. And we said, you know what, we can make this run more efficiently if we just use the right tools and with the right scales. So now we have a system where we can, track information, do budget analysis. And we started off with our utility and electricity accounts. Those accounted for about 750. And off the bat, we were identifying areas where we could save the city money, or where things did not seem right in terms of the energy usage and the way it was fluctuating in a building. And now we're taking that on because we've been successful taking that on for sewer and water. So we're going to be able to open up more opportunities in that way. And then the one thing I wanted to highlight here, because we had really an approach that wasn't right in par with what I'm talking about, this 21st century digital age, it was slowing us down in terms of the city as to how we were paying our bills. And one of the things that David overhauled in the system is making sure that we weren't incurring utility late payment fees. And thinking about saving $35,000 a year in those avoided costs, right?
we
And
just
aggregate.
please.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a 3-year average.
that's
They
right,
differ.
so David. Oh my gosh. Wait, did you have-
Sorry,
No, please.
I don't mean to, I should wait till you're done, but was the city, recurring late fees because of the, how many utility accounts there was? It sounds like from what I'm trying to interpret, the cloud database helps combine the accounts or kind of.
Streamline it, so it becomes like an automatic system where information is going in there. And then David, for the very first time, working with finance collaboratively, we were able to set up automatic payments, right? Where we have a budget for these utilities, we know how much we should be paying. And by having a system where we can see the information in real time with the invoice
Mhm.
and say, there's no reason why we shouldn't go ahead and pay this bill and do it automatically, it's saving the city so much money versus having like stacks of paper where it's like by the time we got to that paper, then you had incurred a late fee.
So
Right.
someone was to do it manually, like paying these bills,
By
manually,
paper.
like,
Yes, and they would wait for the entire month for the bills to come in. Bills are not issued on a single day by the utilities. They're issued on a weekly basis, about 20% of their accounts, so there's 5 billing cycles. So we're waiting for all of January to come in. It could be mid-February before we get the last of them. Wow. And then they would be processed, so we could be anywhere from 45 to 90 days until they got paid.
Yeah.
Now-
And solutions like this, right, just streamline it. We're just much more efficient than like pushing paper. Maybe once upon a time that worked when we were managing fewer accounts, not
Yes.
anymore.
And disputes can be resolved, I mean, before you pay the bill or after you pay the bill. It's better to pay out, dispute it after.
Yeah, and then this ties into the budget that we manage as a department. When it comes to all utilities, heat, power and light, and we're actually gonna rename this because now we're taking on water and sewer. It's a $12 million budget. It's broken down into expenses and also the energy credits, which turn into savings on utility bills coming from the agreements we have for solar. So that's part of that budget. And what I wanted to highlight for you here is that David will talk about it more, but thinking about utilities as an asset, because using that asset, we were able to contribute $3 million to the settlement with schools. So that made a difference.
Yeah, it's huge.
Then the other thing I want to highlight, what David has been able to secure over the past 2 calendar years. It's what we refer to as energy procurement. So it's really looking at the market and saying, if we were to lock in at a certain price for gas or electricity, through this supplier, we're going to be able to save this much over the next 2 years, for example. And that alone has saved the city $1.2 million. So when we think about as we are electrifying our buildings and adding more to the electricity load and really being able to identify with tools like this who are the high energy users in our buildings, that gives us more leverage to sign contracts like this so we can save the city money. The other thing I want to point out in terms of we do this work with partners, and Rhode Island Energy is one of them. We have a strategic energy management program with them, or they have a program, we participate, and they're giving us basically resources to do 40 lighting projects. And the other important thing that's worth pointing out, and Sue, Councilwoman Anderwa, Sue Anderwa knows as well, these are programs that we pay into as customers of the utility, right? Through energy efficiency. So what we make sure we do as a department is that we are utilizing that, right? And that we are carrying our weight as a city of Providence and the load and the count that we have and say, we want as much of this energy efficiency through lighting projects and enhanced controls for buildings for lighting. We want as much of that as possible. And that's money that we don't have to spend up front, and then we're getting that in terms of energy savings. And then David will highlight in terms of what that means for building operations and how if we do this well, we're going to continue seeing the savings and avoided costs there. And then again, just to stress that we do this work with 6 FTEs, and they're essential for us to make sure that we are fiscally doing this responsibly, that we have the energy expertise on hand and also the communications and going through procurement. So just to say, we're a good bang for your buck in terms of everything that we do, because we really pride ourselves in doing that effectively and efficiently and really stretching our capacity by forming the right partnerships. And then, of course, we can't do this alone. We work very closely with public property parks. And then also highlighting for you, this is a glimpse of what we are achieving without having yet control of the schools, right? When we really have PTSD at the table and we have return to local control of the schools, we'll be able to go even deeper on those school buildings. All right, so now I'm going to start us off with building energy reporting ordinance. program and talk a little bit about the administration process, the progress, the challenges. And David is going to get more into where we are in terms of those challenges and expectations. So as Sue mentioned, this was enacted through ordinance, and this ordinance for the Building Energy Reporting Program goes back to November 2023. It requires owners of large buildings to report their energy usage. And then what happens with that information is that as they are reporting that, we then later on in the year will go ahead and publicly disclose that, right? So that will serve as their benchmark that is now transparent to everyone as to how much energy usage their buildings are consuming. But what's really, I think, exciting about this program is that it is going to help building owners unlock cost-saving actions. So it's going to give them insight as to how they can actually improve their bottom line by investing in measures like energy efficiency and being able to do that cost effectively. So we are a leader in Rhode Island. Providence, we really position ourselves to do this and to also do it well. One of the things we like to point out when we are talking also to the state is reminding them that although we are the first in the state, we are not the only ones. There are 30 other municipalities that are doing this very well across the nation. And I am really glad that David has worked with some of those municipalities, so he knows what it takes to launch a building energy reporting program. And successfully, he got us through the first year in setting up the baseline for the city, because we are a large building owner as well. So we were due to report for 64 of our buildings out of 120. And we did that well, and now we have insight to these 64 buildings. So again, we're using our information as an asset, and we're being able to target where we do energy efficiency, where we do improvements. And that is the case study that we want to tell our building owners, like, hey, the city's doing it, you can do it too. And these are economic savings, right, that you're going to see just by looking at the information in your bill and doing energy efficiency investments. So in terms of how we've achieved our framework, as I mentioned, this is the report that was released this was December last year, December 2024. And it's a short read, about 5 pages, and it gives you the framework that we've developed and the 64 properties that we analyzed. One of the things that we really wanted to do in our department was to make sure that we did this cost effectively. Meaning, we secured the grants that we needed. We got about 18 months worth of software. And this is software that we think is critical. It's the shorthand is Beam, but it's basically another cloud software that helps with data collection, analytics, and reporting, because what we see as essential is, right, we want building owners to be aware of this. That is the outreach we're doing now, but we also want them to have a comprehensive analysis of their energy usage. And this platform is going to be able to provide that. Once they report their energy usage, they're going to be able to unlock that information. And then also it helps us communicate with them in a very seamless way.
Yeah.
This year we have 350,000 square feet and above that are due to report. So this platform will let us communicate with them as a one-stop shop if we need to, right? To send a reminder and say, your energy usage is due today, for example, or Andrew Broccolo, our energy manager, he has now taken on the implementation of this program, and he's doing it incredibly well and working with partners like Rhode Island Energy. And he's actually going to be doing a webinar with them, right? So this is something we can also, as we're building up the database, communicate with building owners. So the last thing I wanted to say here, and then I'll kick it over to David, is that often when we are at the state level and talking about this, we have about nearly 900 of the buildings. The state has about 2,300, right, that they want to start benchmarking for. Their price tag is 1.4 million. We have figured out how to do this with $28,000 and get the tools that we needed. And of course, that doesn't include staff time, but right now we have the equivalent of a part-time employee working on that, because it's half of Andrew's time. And before that, no one of us was spending our entire time on it. It was some of David's time working with the RI Energy Fellows. So it's like, if you know who's out there. We know who are the industry players. We know who to talk to in order to do this effectively and economically.
Thank you for the reason.
Did you say 28,000 was your budget?
28,000 for the software that we're using to administer the program,
Oh.
and then a part-time, the equivalent of a part-time employee.
It's still 28,000 a year.
Yes.
We got an 18-month grant, which paid for that. It'll expire in June or July. So we're looking at for the next fiscal year. So we've been very cost effective in being able to leverage this industry connections to get things done. So progress in year one, we did have 100% compliance because the municipal properties had to report. We had, again, a small number, 120 buildings. Some of them were too small to reported to Bureau, but we benchmarked them anyway. And it was all done manually through Portfolio Manager. And as Director Delacruz just said, we did bring on a piece of software called Beam. And that will allow us to analyze and report out in a standard way. It won't be me late at night crunching all of these numbers and writing a report. But as of today, we are able to handle all 800 and close to 800 buildings that would need to report over the next few years just by connecting their data to Portfolio Manager and Portfolio Manager into Beam. So a year ago, we had no idea how we were going to handle the compliance rate of just the cities. So we did it manually. Today, we can effectively handle 100% of those. So that is good news. But what to expect as programs Bureau or Bureau reporting ordinances roll out across the city? And Andrew and I have been working phones and developing relationships across the country with communities. A compliance rate of about 15% is the norm in the first year of general reporting. We are, I would say, less than 7%, maybe 6% with the buildings that the city owns. So Andrew, you're probably looking at maybe 20% we could hit this year if all goes well.
Based on all the outreach that I've done, we could get up to 30% if everyone that I've contacted actually.
That's Andrew.
So,
Yeah.
That's not really municipal.
and I'm always a big proponent of saying this is what we could hit and we'll probably get half of that.
Yeah.
So, and that jives with national statistics, year two compliance be about 25%. And if you really want to project out 4 or 5 years, mature programs, they're about 70% compliance. So we're on track, we're comfortable. The largest challenge that I think we resolved was Rhode Island Energy, when it came into existence, when PP&L took over, lost a vital connection to Portfolio Manager. That has been restored or will be restored in short order time. I'm looking to Andrew because he has the program now, thank God.
Yeah, so I can't make any promises yet, but they're very confident they will have a contract with vendor signed this week. And it will be ready, help desk and everything, their own help desk on top of our help desk. Will be ready with plenty of time for building up the street for.
I just want to point out that this is huge, not just for us, but PPL operates in other states and will be the first city to have this connection. And so it's going to be really, it could be really game changing in Pennsylvania, Washington, and other places where they are a laggard in the residential. So I just want to also.
Yeah. We even have the mayor also, like the mayor also weighed in and put the pressure on Rhode Island Energy and then working with industry partners. Then we had national folks putting the pressure on PPL and here we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and we do know from some contacts on the federal level that both Pennsylvania and Kentucky, where PP&L has a presence, have been pressuring Pittsburgh to do this for their states as well, for their utility companies. So it's all coming together.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what we're looking forward to. And I would say as more buildings report, it will require a bit more staff time, but we have the basic capacity to handle all of that. And as the numbers go up, we'll find more capacity. There's not a whole lot to report other than what's in here. If you want a demonstration of Beam, we can arrange that. But if you don't have any other questions, I'm gonna dive into decarbonization. Happy anniversary to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, just had a question on, it's probably in that report, so I apologize, but how many, you all had said 120 city buildings?
Yep.
And 64 of those buildings, we are implementing this or trying to?
We are reporting on them based on the ordinance.
The ordinance requires municipal buildings over 10,000 square feet to report.
Yeah.
But we have a number of buildings that are less than 10,000 square feet. So they are not formally reporting or required to report into as per the ordinance. We have, however, benchmarked them. Because we would need that information. This was done long before the ordinance was passed. But we would need that information to launch our decarbonization roadmap.
Yeah, and are there like, is there, I'm just curious about the addresses. Like, is there a way I could get like, it's in the back of the addresses of the buildings?
I think there was like an appendix of the list of all.
Yeah, do we have the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which buildings, the municipal buildings
Yeah.
or the buildings across the city? Both?
Yep, we have addresses on,
Okay.
for the city buildings.
Yeah,
I think
that's,
we sent that around in December, but I can resend.
okay.
But we
Yeah, it
have,
would be good to resend it, right, because we shared it along.
Yeah, I think it's already on the portal, but. I think that's what I
and
should.
we have several active databases, which are just municipal buildings. And then all the buildings within the program that must report. And I will point out that, a good tangent, which is, it takes 3 to 5 years to launch a successful program. It takes about 3 to 5 years to get to codify a covered property list, those properties which are covered for reported. Buildings come online, they come offline, square footage changes with additions. So again, this is what we're finding across the country.
And the work we're doing right now is also part of that, like cleaning up that list of those covered properties for private building owners, but also most importantly, which is the work that Andrew is doing now, is identifying who's the right contact there.
Yeah.
Right, who is making the facility decisions in terms of operations to report, but also do the energy efficiency.
Oh, I'm in the driver's seat apparently. So
Oh,
decarb,
wait, I think Councilman Sanchez, your question.
Yeah, just for, just for a reminder, so you said municipal buildings over 10,000 square feet, what is the ordinance? Or what's the requirement for just commercial buildings?
there are 2 tiers. The first tier is buildings over 50,000 square feet. And then the second tier is buildings between 20,000 and 50,000. It seems somewhat backwards, but, so all buildings over 20,000 square feet throughout the city would need to report.
What's the estimated total buildings?
So
So like 800?
total of municipal and so, and then 20,000 one was 831 as of today.
Yeah, and that tiered approach is really great and appreciate that Councilwoman and the Rob put that in there because the largest building owners that are due to report this year are 300, right? We've reported on 64, 300, but leaving the 20,000 to 50,000 square feet for next year helps us like making sure that the program is working well with less buildings before the next tier comes online. And also anticipating that those that are like between 20 and 50,000 square feet might be a little harder to reach or might not be already benchmarking. Because David knows from the national trend is that those really large building owners that are due this year, about 50,000 square feet. What we're realizing as we are reaching out to them, which is in accordance to the national trend, is that they're likely already doing benchmarking. And actually, I'd like to hear the anecdotal calls that Andrew has where a couple building owners are like, oh, great, I was expecting this. Yeah, we've been doing this. And also for them, it's an economics, it makes economic sense, right, to do this and to understand their buildings and do energy efficiency. So that's been exciting.
Okay, back to you, David. On our 1-year anniversary of this getting signed, you're gonna tell us about where we're at. Our energy's not matching. your-
1 year. It's been an interesting year and we'd really like to just go over the implementation of the program. The electrification efforts that the city is already undertaking, our solar projects, which are part of the ordinance, and then cost savings and revenues that we anticipate that can help meet our goals. So we had really structured our activities, by following the mandates of this ordinance. And the four topics that I really want to talk about is our report, as we hope to generate, we are now collecting data on 120 buildings. There are, all of these buildings are in portfolio managers, so that energy information and then the carbon information is there. But in order to assess a building for electrification, you need yet another program.
Of course.
So where with Bureau, we went from Energy Star to our portfolio manager to Beam. Now we're going from portfolio manager to Better, which is a DOE program, which is building efficiency targeting tool for retrofits. And we have a contract with Power Options to help us write the plan. They've been writing decarbonization plans for several years now. This Better software requires 39 additional data points per building. That's a lot of data to collect. So we did deliver the first round of, I think, 64, 68 buildings, public property and parks, to them, and they're going to be running that analysis. So we expect to see a full-blown report, assuming that the Zoom PPSD can deliver on their data as well. Fingers crossed, sometime before the end of June. And what we would get is really an analysis of energy and carbon baselines, which is important. Electrification strategies and timelines. Also, high-level costs, what it might take, and these are national averages. It would also assess the buildings for solar potential. Just the buildings, not the lots. It is high level. And then most important, because if we look at this building here, I don't believe the technology or the budgets exist where we could electrify it tomorrow. So maybe it is the 2039 building that we're electrifying. In the meantime, operations and maintenance of the existing systems become very, very critical. So it will touch on how we can leverage the existing buildings, the existing systems, and how we can work with Rhode Island Energy and public property to make them more efficient, both in terms of operations and maintenance schedules. So that's the focus of the decarbonization roadmap that we are creating. And again, we're looking at, fingers crossed, a late June delivery. So the other piece that we are putting together, and this was Director Dela Cruz brainstorm, which is a guidance document for various departments to help plan out budgeting. We're finding out at DPW headquarters. This budget was established 3 years ago. The plans were, the schematic designs were almost done a year ago, when they were told, take those gas boilers out. So costs are increasing. And we're also finding hidden costs in terms of, we're retrofitting a building that was built 50 years ago. It has an electric service that needs to be updated. So those are some hidden costs. We also are finding there's a great deal of money that Rhode Island Energy can contribute to this. And we've left some of that on the table, and I have some specific slides to that. So we will be writing a guidance document. That's Dylan will be spending the summer doing that to help with RFPs, to help with contracts, and to help us meet a lot of the decarbonization goals and requirements. So, I'm going to cover just briefly the electrification projects that the city has undertaken. We have benefited from a good deal of the IRA money, infrastructure money that was released in prior administration. We have 8 recreation centers that are undergoing electrification measures, 100% electrification. Elmwood will still have some gas on site. But that will also include the Olneyville Resiliency Hub, which, fingers crossed, will have a microgrid, will have solar and battery. We're also looking at the DPW headquarters. Again, 100% electric, and we have solar and battery storage planned for that as well. What we're finding out is that we can swap out generators, battery and solar, and still achieve the same level of power, but with greater resiliency. So that was an even swap. There was very little impact on the budget for that. But when we look at the rec centers, they account for less than 2% of the total square footage that the city has. And the new DPW headquarters, we have over 7 million square feet of developed space. That's 44,000 square feet. Where we need to focus our efforts will be on the school projects, and we are undergoing, as we all know, a 4-phase plan. There are 28 planned projects as far as we are tracking right now. They have 2 categories, 15 new or like new buildings. Spaziano was built new, Debate was gutted and rebuilt, and Narducci.
Yep.
All these Italian names, figure I could get them right. That was also we had put back like news, and those have the greatest potential, both to reduce carbon and actually to help fund solar and battery storage, as we will find out. So the city is pursuing them. The schools are very unique, as you know. As you wrote the ordinance, it specifically calls out back to the schools would have to adhere to the New England CHIP standard. I had a meeting with Downs Construction today to review all of the planned projects that are getting built. They are building not only to 2.8, but to 4.0, which is the standard as it evolves. So it's 100% electric, EV ready, solar ready. And so we're in a very good shape. And as our relationship and as take back control occurs, we'll have more insight into what is going on and how we can claim those savings. So those are a high level view of the projects, and they're keeping everyone busy. So along with electrification or energy efficiency, and again, we say electrification, but it's also let's reduce the lighting loads. Let's bring in electric HVAC, which will provide both heating and cooling. And we're looking for every opportunity to reduce existing energy loads. We're also looking to bring in solar projects as well. If you want to make the buildings carbon free, but then we also have this initiative to create clean electricity and to get off of fossil fuel-based electricity. And the grid is not going to be 100% clean by 2040. So we need to develop some solar projects and we can claim that saving. So every project that I tell you today that we are developing under this pilot, we are making sure that we own the environmental benefits to them as well. So the cost of electricity might be a little more, but long-term savings is still there. We did launch, how many months ago? Maybe September, October, a pilot for 6 solar projects across the city, and it's interdepartmental. We have a public safety complex, we have a parks maintenance facility, and then 3 schools that we're focusing on, and then as well as the DPW headquarters we tacked on because solar came about. And what we're doing is we're looking at different ownership models, different finance models, to see what's best for the city, what's best for the facility. I would say in September, we had a rosier view as to how much money we collect. And now that's, we're questioning that, as everyone is. But we are going through the procurement process the same way that we have procured electricity through the WEAP program, the one where we did save $1.2 million. So it's a pretty good program. It is endorsed by the state. It is endorsed by the city, managed by the Rhode Island League. And that gives us great insight. We're working with Select Energy, which is one of the premier solar installers in the municipal arena across New England. So the pilot again is to test out several ownership models. And I'm going to highlight our public safety building in a moment to show you exactly what the financials are like. But other technologies that we are exploring as per the ordinance will be ground source heat pumps as a new technology, thermal networks. One thing that didn't make it up here is sewer thermal networks, which is fascinating. Andrew and I have sat in on a number of webinars, and they are popping up around the world because it's more consistent than ground source heat pump. Heat, as well as microgrids, and we have we entered into agreement with Rocky Mountain Institute?
We do, yeah, we're gonna be working with them and they're like internationally recognized and they've done microgrid projects in Puerto Rico. So they're really excited to help us figure that, how to do that here. And another piece of good news that I didn't share, thanks to the planning department, re-envision this exercise of re-envisioning the hospital district. I learned this morning that the hospitals were talking about thermal networks.
Thermal networks.
Grants are, and these type of technologies, and that they want to have this conversation with us, because there's a potential to, as you build out networks connecting different buildings and you have these systems underground, that is not only good for the community, but also for city, to build up city revenue as well through those different models. So I'm really excited about figuring out how can we make one happen.
Yeah.
And-
Can they just finish the presentation and we'll follow up at the end, sorry, yeah.
And I think Councilman.
Yeah, I'm sorry for my layman right here, but are the ownership models those so I guess I'm a little confused. The ownership models, is that what you're selling as like sort of grand source heat pumps, thermal networks, and microgrids, or is
No,
that
that's a
all
great
based?
question. Yeah, we should clarify what we mean. David was talking about them for
With,
solar
with
too.
the solar, and we're using solar, we should use renewable energy projects. Because all of these on the page are renewable energy projects. So historically, solar projects were through power purchase agreements. We did not own the asset. The person that had the solar on their roof, it was owned by a third party. We purchased the energy. We could also purchase the environmental benefits, but there was there's no cost to us. And I wouldn't say we weren't able to fully realize the financial benefits. That's still on the table, and that's something that the Roger Williams Park Maintenance Facility might, the course that might go down. The public safety project through one of the pro formas that we developed, that is paying outright through a capital improvement plan budget. The existing budget, there was $2.3 million for public safety improvements. They had some projects come in under budget, and finance was kind enough to transfer those funds over to us. So that is straight up ownership, and we get, as you can see here, we have incentives for state renewable energy fund incentives, $70,000 and $160,000 coming back from federal tax credits, investment tax credits. So for the 25-year life of this system, we're investing 400,000 up front. We will get back 240 of that within the first 2 years. And then based on, it's not savings, but it is avoided costs. We will not be paying for electricity.
Yeah.
So in total, over the course of 25 years, that $400,000 investment will yield $1 million in either incentives or avoided costs.
That's huge.
And
Yeah.
that's, not only is that impressive, but what's very eye-opening is this is one building, the public safety building.
Yeah,
It's one of the smaller buildings that can support
Yeah.
solar, and it's only going to produce 6% of the energy that building consumes, the electricity that building consumes.
yeah,
So imagine going to a school where you have a
Yeah.
system that's 3 times as large and then is not open in the summer. What
Yeah.
happens to all of that energy? We bank it, we make more money because we're selling it back to the grid.
oh, yeah, because you're generating all the.
Correct. And if we can layer on batteries, that's another source of revenue that we can sell back to the grid.
Yeah,
So when Director Delacruz had said, we should stop thinking about our buildings and our utility counts as liabilities, they are assets
Yeah.
now. We have to start thinking that way. Because not only are we, as we electrify them with new technologies, the technology that operates them become much more sophisticated. I'm gonna take out my props here because I'm doing
Yeah.
this. Most of our buildings are flip phone technology. You know,
You still have that.
take, just take it, you know, taking a picture, sending a text, surfing the web on this, you cannot do it. This is 20 years old. Our buildings are sometimes 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 160 years old.
Yeah.
What we want is a building where Anthony Alves can punch in,
Yeah.
call up any one building, turn off the lights, roll back the thermostats, crash the systems if need to, check on the solar. That's the direction we are heading. That's the direction that the industry is heading. And with that, our liabilities, our buildings become assets. So I want to show you a little bit of that. in a minute.
Yeah.
So with the solar projects, when we say different ownership models, this is that the city is owning it outright. We go with a power purchase agreement and we would see maybe $300,000 in net savings coming back with the 25 years. Or we could go with a lease to own option, which is several layers of financing where it's probably, I don't know, I think it was $500,000 or $600,000 in savings. So our goal, and we hope to demonstrate this to you shortly, is that if we can start a green revolving fund, we would be able to fund these projects, wait for investment tax credits to come in, wait for incentives to come in, and just kind of keep perpetuating that.
And
fund.
reinvest it to
Yeah.
generate more revenue for the city. And we're about 4 slides out.
Yeah, we could like by 6:30, so I just want to make sure there's time for it.
Yeah.
All right, so opportunities for incentive revenues and cost sharing. I'm just gonna go to really the big ticket items here. There are 2 sources of revenues for us right now, is we are building new buildings. They're design and construction incentives, both from Rhode Island Energy and from federal tax deductions. We missed an opportunity with the last 3 schools, Narducci, Debate, and Spaziano. Rhode Island Energy was just coming into creation. COVID was just winding down, with change in many administrations here nationally. So no harm, no foul, but we missed the mark. And as we look at these incentive packages, those 3 schools could have generated close to $1.8 million in incentives if we had fully participated and met all the design requirements. And I stated earlier, let's aim high and then cut back. So maybe if we hit 50% of the mark, we're still just short of $1 million.
Yeah.
That goes a long way to buying solar, into
Yeah.
financing solar. The next 3 projects that are coming out of the ground now for the schools could yield up to $3.7 million.
Oh my gosh.
And just DPW, which is under review right now, it's a small building, 44,000, could yield 380,000, maybe $400,000.
So it's
in-
over how much time period?
This is less than a year. This is if you design it and build it to certain specifications, but you're better than code. And the utility company can claim energy savings against a code built house. They will pay you money, both for designing and operating building efficiently.
And
Yeah.
so is the idea to sort of put that savings into the revolving fund or?
Oh,
Well-
Here we go.
that was a great segue.
So, thank you. So the last column, on the D&C incentive totals, I carried over to the next slide. Those were construction incentives. Now, if we get into solar incentives, we have the Rhode Island Renewable Energy Fund. We also have investment tax credits on the federal level, which seem very secure. They have been for 20 years. Corporate America loves them.
Okay.
And they ain't going away. So we can layer on, and again, it's based on not so much square footage, but the amount of solar that's being installed. We can layer on another, almost double that amount, a third or twice that amount of money going in. And if you look at the third to last column, the total available funds for the next 3 projects that are coming out of the ground is $4.6 million against solar installation costs of $1.2 million. And again, those costs are are fixed. If we only have half that money to invest, we are still coming out ahead. We still have $3 to $1.5 million to invest either in battery storage,
Yeah.
in microgrids, or put that into a green revolving fund. The green revolving fund is important because some of the smaller projects
Yeah.
will not qualify for any of this. But right now, as we're projecting this out, if we can collect this money, we would love to spend it on the things that you're asking us to spend it on.
Yeah, and then it's an investment, right? Because then those things are gonna start generating savings and revenue. But the revolving fund just gives us the upfront capital we need to get those investments going.
Yeah, okay, one, this is the best thing I've heard all year, and two, like, what would you need from us to like get that? Do you need anything from the council to create? a
At some
fund like
point,
that?
we
Okay.
will, yeah, we are working through it, through the administration, we've been having these discussions. So I think once we like finish, looking through like how it would work and the mechanisms, then we would want to work with you collaboratively on like writing the
Yeah.
policy, right, and getting that, and getting your approval of
Yeah.
that.
That sounds good.
And I'll just close with this and hand it off to, back to you, Priscilla. What I didn't cover here were the impact that batteries would have, and also what building management systems and energy management systems would have. And again, I alluded to the fact that if you are not using the electricity, you can sell it back to the grid. If you participate in programs, and even if you don't release energy back or curtail your energy use, there are still payments that are made by the utility, by ISO New England, by a number of purveyors in the energy field for us just to participate. And a study that was done, we commissioned it about 1.5 years ago to study buildings that could qualify in curtailment programs. There was a 5-year payback of close to $1 million. And again, it was these type of buildings, not these type of buildings. And soon enough, we'll have that fund will grow. And our
just to
ability.
stress, we would have been able to enroll in those programs, but because we, again, don't have control of the schools and there's extra coordination, we couldn't just automatically enroll them and get that $1 million saving.
Mhm.
So that will shift and change. And then anything else to, so
I'm through. Unless you have any questions.
in the last like 30-40 seconds, so I'm not gonna read what's up here, but I hope we achieve the things that we intended to hear. Like often you will hear myself and the department just talk about the things that improve quality of life. But also what we wanted to show is that these things also make economic sense and they benefit city operations and the community, right, that we work for. And then the other thing I wanted to stress, you know, you heard from David all about the opportunities and really driving more of these investments to achieve those savings and that revenue. I wanted to share, like, we not only do this, you heard a lot on the energy side, but we also apply the same approach and philosophy when it comes to issues like waste and trash reduction, right? That costs the city money when we don't do that well, when we don't recycle well. So we have several pilots working across different departments to really get at that. And then also we've been, as Councilwoman Anderwan knows, we've been exploring, you know, what are sustainable and equitable ways that we can generate the revenue we need for managing our stormwater and sewer better and tackling flooding mitigation projects. And then, of course, you all know we have the Providence Community Electricity Program that is saving our residents money and giving them cleaner sources of energy. So this is the work that we want to continue doing for you all and really looking at, you know, how do we do these things strategically and effectively while improving the quality of life for our residents. It's a yes and. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
And I think before you guys leave, the table, we did have one question from the public, I think, about microgrids.
I'm sorry, I'll Google it. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
And I think.
What is a microgrid? Is the question, I think?
Yeah, I just was gonna like, just explain microgrid.
What is a microgrid?
Yeah.
So, the better term would be an island of microgrid. So if you lose power in your house, some people turn on generators if you're lucky enough to have a generator. And what you need when you have that generator is a disconnect, so that none of that power goes back in the grid. So you've actually created a small microgrid, so you can function.
Standalone,
Right.
autonomous.
But imagine if you not only have a generator, but you have solar power and you have a battery, all trying to work in combination. So there are many layers. A generator requires fuel. And that fuel supply might run out during a blackout. But if you have solar and battery storage, a microgrid, an island microgrid uses a piece of software again, to regulate how that, and all those energy resources are connected and supplying the building with energy and not supplying the grid. So
Okay, so like hospitals would be a good example. of like
hospitals,
80
public
times
safety
around.
buildings,
Yeah.
data centers, like banks, you got it.
And Councilman Roy said,
Yeah, just want to continue to end this on a positive note. I think, grateful for your leadership, and every time we have these committee meetings, I'm reminded of how important it was to establish this committee. And then you all just do great work, and I just really, we have this national conversation that is like talking about government waste, which makes me want to vomit. But your work, the amazing work you all are doing is flying in the face of that national narrative. So I'm just super appreciative. Thank you. for everything.
Thank you, that means a lot, really appreciate it.
no, I'm gonna like cry on my way home. I guess for real, probably. And I think we have one more question. Yeah, comment.
Thanks, everyone. This is so cool. Thank you for your work. I have a really quick question about solar. And pardon my, if I'm totally obvious here, is solar over parking lots at all something that is being considered, or is that cost effective at all? I don't know. Because there's just so many urban heat islands, like the St. Joseph's parking lot, for instance. And I'm just wondering if there are municipal buildings where rooftop is not an option, if
That's a good question, and I'm parched, and I'm gonna let a solar expert, Andrew Brown, take that. He's actually working with a nonprofit on a canopy, but I'm gonna get some water, and you're gonna answer the question.
Yeah, well, like, roof farms in multiple different words that you can use, graphics, similar technologies, carport canopies. You're right, it's to reduce the heat island effect. And there are multiple incentives available on top of existing incentives for solar, because of the cost of steel, and you're paying, you have to pay for the structure
yeah.
on top and solar, whereas for the building, you already have the structure.
Right.
There are a lot of, space is a big deal, zoning is a factor as well. But there is opportunity, but they can be as tough, if not more tough sometimes. But we are considering them, we are constantly on the lookout for spots, because they need to happen.
I think it would be so cool if we could pilot one and just like,
Yeah.
see how it goes.
Yeah. I've designed many, so, yeah.
James just has a question.
It's not a question, it's a comment, to Liza, and you guys, thank you so much for your work. We had a developer here a couple months ago, that's renovating the church on Mahan Ave. Into apartments, and he is including canopy, solar, so that'll be exciting to see here in
Yeah.
Providence, yeah.
Cool.
And there's one thing up in Closet, so that could be something, anyway. That's so far. I know, but like, having.
Man, come on.
Yeah.
And it almost made the cut for DPW, but in terms of the numbers and the way the state of federal incentives, we ended up not doing the canopy at DPW.
Okay, Councilman Roy.
One more question, I'm sorry.
You're-
Da Vinci Center is a city-owned building. It's a community center nonprofit in my neighborhood. Any sort of efficiency, I think the executive director was talking to me about a partnership with the Department of Sustainability, making it a resiliency hub. Is that ever, okay, is there like any potential, I probably should have asked this offline, but is there any updates on that, or?
So we have our first pilot in Oniville, and I imagine that's what she's referring to, where we're looking at all of our rec centers and we're saying, what would it take to turn this into a resilience hub? That has multiple layers. One of them is like definitely making sure we get fossil fuels out of there and that it can serve as like eventually a heating and cooling place for the community. It wouldn't be anything like a shelter, but it's just like ours, like if the power were to go down, right, you have somewhere you can go that has backup power. Or if there's an extreme heat day and you're like, I need a few hours to cool off, my AC is not working, or I don't have one, you have somewhere to go. But the other part of that is that there is robust community engagement and involvement where there's programming and services running all year round to make sure that we're supporting the community and working with them, even when there isn't like an extreme heat day or a really cold day. So we are making, David mentioned, 7 other recs, recreational community centers outside of the Jocelyn one where the Oniville hub lives, where we are making upgrades. So it's only a matter of time. The mayor has referred to it like he would love a network, right? Where we have all of our rec centers functioning in that way.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Oh, thank you. This is great.
Because you love me. This is amazing. Okay, I'm so glad. Anyway, can we do, when council members returns, we're gonna continue item 2 until April. Oh, is that, okay. Can I have a motion to continue item number 2, until our next meeting, for line?
Sure. Oh, sorry, second.
Okay, second.
Cycle.
Excellent, all in favor? Everyone's in favor, excellent. On April 9th, we're gonna have a presentation from GPA Consulting, who's doing the, port master planning with Providence, and they're gonna talk about all sorts of port issues with us. And, so Priscilla, our Director Daily Cruz, is gonna come back and talk about, Providence staff exempt agreement, and we're just having a whole port conversation on that day, so can we please read item 3 into the agenda or into the meeting and bring Alex to the table?
Presentation on plan required to achieve Vision Zero. Presentation by Alex Ellis, Principal Planner, Department of Planning and Development.
I just want to say I'm super pumped about this. You guys will remember that a little over a year ago, we passed the Vision Zero resolution, committing us to a vision of 0 traffic fatalities and major injuries by 2030. Alex has been working really hard with a task force that I'm also on, and it was a agency task force to develop this plan. And I'm really excited about it because this is incredibly important. So I will stop talking and let Alex talk about these awesome plans. We don't have the final version yet, so it's gonna be high level. And then once we have the version, I can share with you guys on Monday. So thank you, Alex.
Great,
We're
thank
grateful
you.
for all the work of that.
Thank you for the tweets. Thank you for your leadership on this, Councilman. So as the councilman said, we've been working on this for a little while, and I'll get my first slide. Yeah, so way back in 2020, right before the pandemic, we released the city's Great Streets Plan. Since then, some of it has been implemented, but then in February 2023, we received this grant, the Safe Streets for All grant, which in addition to some construction projects, included a budget for updating the Great Streets Plan and bringing it more in line with that Safe Streets for All framework, which is very similar to Vision Zero. As you know, last year, he passed the Vision Zero resolution and policy. The federal grant agreement process took a little while, but in August, we got started with our consultant to do that work of updating the plan. And then in October, we had we had some meetings and a survey, which I'll have more about in an upcoming slide. And notably, the comp plan has a lot of strategies related to this. So when the comp plan was approved in November, that really was influential to the development of the plan as well. So high level, this plan involves a pretty rigorous data analysis of crashes and where they've occurred, where they may occur in the future. A menu of options and infrastructure toolbox, which again, I'll have more about all these things in the upcoming slides. And then some strategies for how to achieve the goals, again, largely from the comp plan. So besides the comp plan and the Great Streets Plan, other plans have fed into this as well. the climate justice plan from 2019, the transit master plan, the tree plan, and the state's bicycle mobility plan, that's part of the long range transportation plan, all have fed into this plan to some degree. So it's not just safety and vision zero that we're trying to do, although that is the primary focus. That's goal number one. Goal number two here is straight from the comp plan of mode shift. So reducing the share of trips taken in private automobiles. And goal three, which is very interrelated with the other goals, is from the climate justice plan and also really the act on climate of emissions reduction. So all of those three are woven throughout the strategies and infrastructure toolbox. So I mentioned the community meetings we had in October. Those were located close to the construction projects that we're planning as part of this grant as well. But they had input on the plan. We also had an online survey and a story map pictured on this slide. And we had 300 responses to that survey. We had some community members as part of a street team or street ambassadors who were going out, talking to people on the street at existing community events in the areas that we're working, to get that extra way for people to interact and hear about our work. And then also we wanted to respect that people in the city have just given a lot of feedback about the comprehensive plan. And when you ask people after you just asked them, what do you think? Okay, now what do you think? It's so to respect all of that feedback people gave for the comprehensive plan, we really went deep into the feedback that people gave as part of that process and integrated that on a granular level into this. So the safety data analysis, our consultants tool design group looked at the past 5 years of crash data in the city, where they occurred. And this, I should say, the safe system approach, which the Safe Streets for All program is based on, is very similar to Vision Zero. They're practically synonymous. And they really focus on fatal and serious injuries, which is a change from traditional traffic engineering, which focuses on all crashes. But this is really focusing in on, where are the locations where we can make investments and keep people from dying and being debilitated on our roads. So tool first looked at where crashes occurred. That created what they call the high injury network. Then they looked at what types of places those are, like what characteristics of the roadway were commonalities between those locations. And then looked at other places in the city that had those features. So this way, we're not just waiting for someone to get injured or killed at a location to prioritize it for improvement. We are proactively looking at where we might expect someone to be injured if we don't do anything. So that created what we call the high priority network. I just put the two graphs on the slide right now. The one on the top is just showing over time the number of total injury crashes and fatal and serious injury crashes. And there's an even better graph about that later in the presentation. And the bottom is just showing that while only 13% of non-serious injury crashes involve someone walking or biking, for serious injuries and fatal collisions, it's more like 30%. Or sorry, 40%. So it's like 3 times overrepresented for people walking and biking. So this map is one of the key outputs of that data analysis. This shows the high priority network and even a smaller subset of the cities in that, the focus segment. So where are the top priorities in this network? So those yellow lines in this map are 7% of the city. And really the top priorities for safety improvements are going to be on those yellow lines. However, the data underlying this is very granular. So for example, if you want to invest some money in safety improvements in your ward for, say, pedestrian safety in particular, we can go to this data and say, where does this data say are the top priorities for that? So that can be very nuanced in how it informs us.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
What's the difference between the high priority network and the focus segments?
Yeah, great question. That I don't fully have an answer to, but the basic idea is that the focus segments are the higher priority portion of high priority network.
I'm sorry, could you just say it something?
So the high priority network looks at where there's injuries, where we expect, where are similar to places that have had injuries, and combines those together. And then everything is scored based on those factors. And based on sort of the top tier of those scores, the highest risk places is where the focus segments are. That's generally why.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
The infrastructure toolbox shows interventions that can improve the safety of a given intersection or street. This is just an example page from that, raised crosswalks and curb extensions. Each of these says the considerations for what to think about when you're selecting that as an intervention, what kinds of streets it's appropriate on, and some other guidance for how to apply that tool. So the next part of the action plan is strategies, and again, these are mostly derived from the comp plan. A couple of them are carryovers from the Great Streets Plan or the Climate Justice Plan, or the Bike Master Plan. So in some of these plans, they had similar strategies. So in here, we try to consolidate them when they were saying basically the same thing. It goes into a little bit more depth than the comp plan does about what each strategy entails, and includes some context, some effectiveness and precedence for each strategy. One of the strategies that we hear a lot about is people want us to expand our urban trail network. So what we've done with this plan is take a look at what we envision in terms of connectivity, incorporate lessons learned since that 2020 plan, trying to make sure that we're reaching parts of the city that we weren't reaching in the 2020 plan. And then we have all this wonderful data analysis for safety. So we want to incorporate that into how we prioritize those improvements. One thing I heard a lot is in all of our outreach is people in the North End want to be connected to the rest of the city. The highways really cut off your ward from other places, and so that came up several times.
Yep, I'd love to,
Could do it that way.
it's a serious issue, and we don't even have enough safety measures in the neighborhood to keep folks safe. It is almost as if try not to be careful what I say. I'll just say that I look forward to taking a look, looking at that seriously, and when my tenure is up, that we bring these safety measures to the North End.
So the final part of this plan is this roadmap to zero. At a basic level, it's looking at where we are now in terms of both the trend in serious collisions and the average over the past 10 years, and then saying, okay, our goal by 2030 is to get to zero. Here's a linear trend to get there. But beyond that, you can combine that pretty simplistic look at the data with the other parts of the plan to really plot out the whole story of how we get achieve Vision Zero. I think that might be my last slide. I'm happy to have a conversation and questions.
Just a comment, looking at how much it looks like the approximate cost for a race crosswalk. It's it overwhelms me because we're allocated so little funding for like NIF that one crosswalk potentially in my neighborhood, and there's so many crosswalks that need to be either repainted or raised, and funds that are allocated to counselors that would it would be a drop in the bucket. I'm not even sure, the funding we get would even cover just one, you know, so. That's all I'll say. I just, it's difficult to think about how much something costs and then how little progress comes from that.
Couple things, points on that. One of the key pieces throughout here, and it has been since 2020, is whenever we are going in and doing a road, repaving it, for example, considering some of these locations that need safety improvements and trying to invest as part of that existing project. So you don't have to be doing these special things. Separately, you know, we're always applying for grants, say from the state transportation improvement program has a scale of funding that can much more easily handle what an intersection needs.
I guess to follow up on that, Alex, thank you so much for your time and presentation, the work you do for the city of Providence. Like how closely do you work with like this traffic engineers at like DPW? You said you like go out. But now I'm thinking about it, I've been like working for the past like year and a half on different raised crosswalks, and speed bumps in my ward, and I don't think I've ever interacted with anyone from planning about it.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works is responsible for the right of way, so that's why you're mostly dealing with them when you're having those conversations. The traffic engineer sits on and regularly attends the Green Complete Streets Advisory Council, which I staff and is talking about a lot of these issues as well. And one of the constraints that traffic engineering has in the city is just the engineering capacity. They're constantly swamped, you know. So, you know, one of the things that some of the strategies in here attempt to do is recommend standards that can help Nate not be needing to make, you know, judgment calls every single time. But if we have citywide, okay, this is what best practice is, we can apply those things at a more citywide scale, like with traffic signals especially.
Makes sense. My other question, when you were talking about like separating the data between like serious like fatalities or serious injury incidents and just regular crashes, is that data is it like very different?
It can
One
be.
another?
So there's, just as an example, if an intersection that has a high volume of car traffic and a traffic light might have a lot of rear end collisions, which usually do not result in any sort of serious injury, but they may be quite common at an intersection. But if that, if we're looking at it from an injury and fatality perspective, that's not going to be as much of a priority as somewhere where, you know, like Memorial and Francis is the top priority intersection where like numerous people have been killed. So, that answer your question?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Alex, would you be open to, no pressure, but, stopping by, my next neighborhood meeting and presenting on this? But if I may ask, like, sort of zeroing in on the high priority network, segments in the north end.
Sure.
I'm looking at the map now and I already know the locations. But just kind of I guess I'll say this on the public record, I want to ease my neighbors into accepting traffic calming measures and so this would be a good conversation, you know, presenting on this. I think I need to also reach out to the Providence Streets Coalition as well to get this conversation going, spin on my radar, but I wanted to see if that, I'll reach out to you, but if it would be really amazing to present this to Ward 4.
I'd be happy to enter into any community meetings throughout the city. Just one thing that you alluded to, but I didn't focus on in the presentation to clarify. Vision Zero and the Safe System approach and Safe Streets for All really highlights speed and speeding as a major contributing factor to serious injury. And in Providence, a lot of when we talk about traffic calming, we're talking about speed bumps, but that is really not the only tool in the toolbox. And that's part of what the infrastructure toolbox in this plan is trying to achieve, is saying, you know, those are appropriate in some contexts. In other contexts, they may not be quite as appropriate. There are other tools we can use.
And Alex, can you share, I think, we were talking before, it sounds like the full plan should be ready sometime in April. It'll be tentative to the council.
Yeah, so we're putting finishing touches on it. That's why we don't have it for you tonight, but our goal, let's see, so we have various people working on different things, getting the drafts back in the next couple of weeks. So my goal is to get it to full council for the April 3rd meeting.
Any other questions?
Just a similar thought to Council Sanchez. I'm thoroughly impressed that this is a focus of the planning and development. And I'm not sure if I fully knew that up until today. So yeah, I'm grateful because and maybe this can speed up some of those safety measures that's seemingly becoming a backlog in my neighborhood. So we'll talk more about it, but yeah.
Yeah, and then just for education about how the different departments work with each other. I mean, Public Works is focused a lot on state of good repair and requests to come in from the public and from your colleagues. That consumes, you know, 130% of their capacity, those three things. State of good repair especially, you know, that's their biggest focus. So when it comes to planning for, you know, other goals of the mobility system, the special projects team within the planning department does a lot of coordination with RIPTA, does a lot of coordination with RIDOT, works very closely with the traffic engineer and the city's chief engineer as well. So there's a lot of interdepartmental coordination, but that's why it's in planning, is because we have this unit that sort of does comp plan, it does neighborhood plans, and it does a lot of mobility stuff.
That makes sense.
Awesome. So if there's no further, we can open it to public comment, and I forgot to announce the sign in for public comments, so it's totally fine, nobody did, and that's great. So we can, if you have a public comment, you just want to raise your hand, but say your name clearly for the record, so clear for everything, for person. Okay.
Thank you, and Jay, again, Alex, everyone, thanks for the hard work. This is actually moving forward. Just had a question, you know, looking at the high cost of everything in the infrastructure toolbox, and knowing that, like, you know, if we do some of that, if we're doing other work and build in the raised crosswalk, then that's still kind of, that's changed a lot on the generation scale, right? We don't get there in the next 2 or 3 years, wait, whether it needs to be repaved or that curb line needs to be for some other reason. Redoing sidewalks or whatever. Has there been any discussion of quick build projects, like, you know, putting in, we already do temporary speed bumps kind of as pilots for thinking about putting in more permanent ones, but like bollards and rubber curbing to do, you know, like temporary curb lines, kind of to put like quick build, you know, pump out curb extensions, things like that, chicanes. Is that something that there's some consideration of including in our plan in the years ahead?
I just thought you
So that's a great question. We haven't figured that out with specificity for our plan and what are the near term things that we can do. But I will say 2 strategies that are included in the plan that have been really banner parts of cities that have had a lot of success with Vision Zero are, one, daylighting and corner wedges using paint and post, and really critically, this is getting nerdy, so I'll summarize. At the corner where there's 2 crosswalks going off, there's a little space at the intersection of the crosswalks. That, what some cities have done, like Hoboken and Jersey City, is have a little sort of quarter circle with a temporary speed bump going diagonal, so you can still go over it. And a truck can still go over it, but if you go over it too fast, you will hit that speed bump and slow down. So that's really cool, and that, they had a lot of success with that. The other thing that New York City has had a lot of success with, has shown really great results with, is traffic safety cameras, speed safety cameras, which is something that can be implemented quickly. Each of these things has a lot of considerations, but those are two things that are not as expensive as the bill safety charge.
And if I could just follow up, on the camera, that sort of leads to my other big question, comments, like that feed lately, the stop signs, the stop sign compliance is terrible in Providence. There are these like stop sign cameras that issue tickets that other cities use. Is that something you've heard any discussion of, possibly being considered in Providence? Or do you think that that's a conversation to maybe push forward?
Yeah, I haven't heard any stop sign, cameras
I
conversation
think
here.
that'd be state legislation like the way that other ones are.
So I looked at I'm not sure if this, I'm not lawyer, I understand the state law around, it looks to me like that would be allowed. So I think that's worth looking into further. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so maybe.
We do have a lawyer. Maybe we could ask to help us figure that out, or that's Aaron, actually, could we write that down over here? Yeah, sorry, so what was the specific question again?
So, stop sign ticketing cameras.
Yeah.
Which again, other cities use. I just know as a cyclist and a pedestrian, most of my close calls are at stop signs.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, a driver who slows down and goes through at 15 and 20 miles an hour. And it's supposed to see that I'm approaching in the bike or stop there, and it's my turn because it's a four-way stop.
Yeah, okay, got it.
I will say the automated traffic enforcement is sort of the umbrella term for camera enforcement. And the way that it's written in the draft plan is broad enough that it can encompass that. You know, the other running red light running cameras, or we have in Providence, another type of camera that has been floated here is block in the box cameras, which but there's lots of ways that they can be applied, but all of them have considerations, of course.
Any other public comment? Okay.
Jared, Alex, that was a great presentation. Thank you much for that. I'm really looking forward to seeing the full plan and, Catherine Taylor, sorry about that. Resident of Providence and also, the state attorney for I'm just really looking forward to supporting the implementation of this and hopefully the success. And I guess I have a question for you and just something for the council members to keep in mind too. To what extent do you think it would be hopeful for implementation of the plan going forward? I know you already have the focus and priority areas all kind of noticed, but to what extent would citizen log audits and the data that can drive from that be useful to your department going forward and making sure that, you know, the right areas are and the right data from actual sort of lived experience is incorporated into the decision.
Yeah, so I and my colleagues had a conversation with the age-friendly communities office in the city recently about just this topic, where the intersection between walk audits, which are wonderful tools, and some of the data analysis is. And what I told them was that walk audits are great value add, especially to provide some of that qualitative information about what does it feel like being in this place, you know, looking out and seeing it versus the data analysis scale, which is like which intersections citywide have a lot of, you know, risk of crashes. So and there's other layers as well that they're looking at like where are there concentration of seniors, you know, in those places maybe we can have longer walk lights, that sort of thing. Walk audits are a great tool.
Great, we'd like to be part of that work and part of that discussion with all of you.
Thank you, Catherine. Is there a better way to loop you into this? And like, how could we better loop in more of the ARPs or you think we don't talk?
Yeah, we can talk offline about that, because we're gonna start to have some meetings around, how to get walk audits going, we kind of in October, we're going to be having American Walks come in. Let's get all of you involved in that and get walk audits going throughout the city.
Oh, perfect.
Committee to be pick out with your constituents, which areas need the most attention.
Yeah.
And then, you know, having you come be involved in what we're calling Walk Hoover. We got to have more to come. So we'll just talk to you in the next month or so and kind of map that out. And such as all of your feedback about what would be the most useful and productive. We'd like to know that so that we can do, you know, the best job serving work.
Andrea Feldman.
What was it? Feldman?
Andrea Feldman.
Feldman.
I noticed that lights have changed recently. It seems like there's like more delayed lights being implemented, so I've seen that because I try and walk a lot. So is that something that could also be undertaken in a more widespread way? Because that's also a great way of just making the streets safer for people who are walking or biking. Anyway, so I've just seen that around. I live on the west side. So.
Yeah. So and you're referring to is called leading pedestrian interval, in the lingo. So to give the walk light, 5 seconds of time before the corresponding green light turns green, let people be a lot more visible. And, there's a documented safety benefit from this. And the good news is that we've been proactive about this. And as you say, at I think all of the city-owned traffic lights where there's not other factors making it less feasible, they have been implemented in the past year or so. All credit to Dave or the traffic engineer for getting on that, doing that quickly. So that's also included as a strategy in the plan, and similar things to that. The Green Police Street Advisory Council produced a really great list of, you know, traffic signal, walk signal related changes that other cities do that we could do here. And that's.
So in addition to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
Alex, just to put this on your radar, just another city official for me to, not necessarily complain, but it's a serious concern that's just been on my backlog of I have a backlog of things that I've continuously put on the to-do list of the city, but it's on this map too, and it for good reason. Smithfield Ave, right near Cello's, it's really, really dangerous. And I'd like every, you know, I'm not even sure if crosswalks are there. I can't remember. I drive by there every day. I can't recall though now, but if we could do something with the lights, it's so dangerous. I know that's a probably traffic thing, for the traffic division, but I mean, there are also so many other unsafe, sections of the north end, but if I could think of one that's really unsafe and hasn't really garnered the attention is Smithfield Ave. Like right near Cello's and the gas stations over there.
Smithfield and Silver Spring.
Exactly, yeah.
That also crosswalk, is that also the only safe?
Are there crosswalks?
But no pedestrian safe.
That's what, that's,
And
they-
70-foot long crosswalks with multiple lane turning traffic.
exactly, yes. Yep, that's,
Is that the city street, Alex, or is that right up?
That's the city's street. It might be some sort of mixed jurisdiction, but. I can forward that on to Nate. I'm sure you've talked to him about it before.
yeah, I have an Excel spreadsheet I've shared with them. Just know, everyone's over, I know everyone's overwhelmed, they're just. The other thing is, on Smithfield Ave, it's not that, I mean, I do think it's connected, but when it snows,
Yeah.
there's that stretch of sidewalk.
Oh, yeah, no plaza.
And no one shovels
We've been
it,
bringing this up forever. He's tried so hard.
and folks get.
They go
folks
to
have-
the street.
They walk, so I think it's connected to this conversation, and, so I just,
Yeah.
it's been,
100%.
and then Branch Ave as well, Sorry, I don't want this to be a bending session, so I'll just,
That's like our fear, yeah, and it's not just like the street, it's like the conditions that then put people in the road, people will go fast on those roads.
Should we have a treat?
a tree, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, the part of this year, but the streets and that.
All of these topics you're bringing up are for the most part in this plan.
Yes.
So the sidewalk, snow clearance especially, but also bike lane snow clearance comes up every year around this time, as something that we could do better at. The consultants who are working on this project for us, Tool Design Group, have actually separately produced a whole guide to how winter cities manage this around the continent. So that guide is summarized briefly in here and then referenced. So there's a lot of best practice we can learn from. I think one of the most compelling ones for sidewalks is some cities specify a certain network of streets that they can, make as big or small as they want, that are high foot traffic, high priorities, or maybe they have a lot of, they're near schools, maybe they're near senior centers, that are high priorities for snow clearance. And then what some cities do is they say, okay, the city is going to take care of these specific locations. And some cities fund that by applying a surcharge based on the width of frontage to the abutters on that, because the city is essentially coming in and being your snow clearance contractor for you for that. The city's snow operations are complicated, I'm sure you all know. So there's a lot of consideration and nuance, but there's some best practice from other cities to learn from.
This might be a PPW question, so tell me if I should ask them, but it feels like the entities that do the worst job at clearing their sidewalks are like large companies, like in my neighborhood, CVS and Bank of America, who just do a garbage job on the street. I'll say that out loud. CVS are on blast, but do we actually do any finding for folks who do a bad job, or like what is the recourse like actually push them to do it? Like my neighbors are going out and they're, elderly folks are out shoveling their sidewalk in CVS and Bank of America again on blast, just not doing it.
I don't know the latest, really it's a staffing issue, because during snow operations,
Yeah, you guys are flat out.
well, their DPW is pulling in people from other departments to do this and that. So my understanding is that has been one of the biggest barriers to inspecting sidewalk clearance. In that guide that I referenced, there is discussion of how cities do compliance with, because a lot of cities have ordinances like ours.
Yeah.
And some cities have staff people who are dedicated to inspecting sidewalks at the appropriate times. One thing that we just launched our new 3-in-1 system yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how much we've integrated reporting of blocked sidewalks from snow into the 3-in-1 app. But that is definitely something that cities that do this well do.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other, Liza, public comment? Yeah, please.
Everyone, Liza Birkin, the Providence Streets Coalition. Mostly want to thank you so much to the planning department and to everyone here for this excellent plan. So much advocating for the past 5 years has made it in. And thank you to the counselors who are here. I want to, so budgeting season is upon us, right? And I know how tight the city's finances are. I think that I want to speak my dream out loud into this room. I think that, other cities that pass Vision Zero policies have dedicated Vision Zero staff for implementation in-house. That's the operative word. I've seen in Cincinnati, they've hired in-house. So my understanding of our current Department of Public Works is that they have extremely little capacity to do construction work. Even the smallest stuff like painting a crosswalk in-house. And so they have to contract it out, which inflates the cost of every single crosswalk.
Yeah.
So in my perfect world, speed school zone cameras would be 50% put into a Vision Zero budget and 50% to the schools themselves. In my perfect world, 100% of the red light cameras would be going to Vision Zero staffing. We could do, it is a chicken and egg situation, but if we hired this budget season, we hired 2 compliance people, maybe part-time, seasonally during the winter. So that next winter, we could actually issue some snow clearance fines, that could go back into that budget.
Yeah.
What I think we need is 1 engineer and a crew of 3 people to be painting crosswalks, to be maybe doing some of the lighter stuff. I don't know that they could physically do curb extensions or raised crosswalks, but I think we could start small, and we need to start at least thinking about it, dreaming about it. I'm gonna just dream about it with you all right now, about having some dedicated staff in-house in public works. Or maybe a cross division, cross public planning and public works to implement this. And it is insane, the lack of compliance for parking tickets, there's so much compliance. I mean, for code enforcement of all kinds throughout the city, having to do with housing, having to do, like, construction management, when they're building when they're building something and they block the sidewalk, we're supposed to be finding them every single day. And that doesn't happen. So that, like, there's revenue being left on the table that could be going to fund this stuff, and I feel like if we just like, if y'all could try to push that in this budget cycle, then we could get started, even if it's just.
Yeah. Thank you guys, I appreciate that.
Sounds like a fire dream.
Yeah, I have a great dream. Any other public comment? Any other comments from you guys? Okay, thank you so much, Alex. It's amazing. I can't wait for the whole plan, and then support you through to get it done. And so if there's no further, business, can we move there?
So second.
We're all in favor. You all second. You're the best.